Have you ever camped somewhere that felt wrong? Maybe the wind seemed to whisper behind you, or the darkness felt too alive. The trees sway without a breeze, and the night sky looks like it's watching you. Tonight, on Nightmare and Fear, I will share a story about a campsite that was anything but ordinary. But first, if you enjoy bone-chilling tales like this, please subscribe to Nightmare and Fear. It's free, and helps us reach our goal of 500 subscribers. Now, gather by the fire, as I tell you what happened to me beneath those silent pines. I arrived at the campsite as twilight approached. The forest around the clearing was strangely silent, like it was holding its breath. Pine needles and moss softened my footsteps. I should have felt at peace, but instead, a chill prickled the back of my neck. My friend Emily arrived a little later with our camping gear and an old lantern. Slight smile in the voice, light teasing. "Scared already?" She teased, grinning at me, but I only shrugged. I told her how strangely quiet it felt here, but she laughed it off. "Beats the bugs, right?" she said. Still, we hurried to set up our tent and gather firewood. My phone had no signal this far out, which wasn't surprising. I flipped open my compass. The needle swung wildly before snapping north. Emily noticed me staring at it. "Everything okay?" she asked. I nodded, though a hint of unease crept through me. The deeper shadows in the clearing seemed almost to pulse with some secret life. In gathering dusk, I coaxed the damp logs into flame. The first log hissed and spat as it caught fire, sending plumes of smoke skyward. The smell of pine resin and wet earth filled the air. Emily and I sat facing each other by the fire. Beyond our circle, the forest was pitch black and silent. Even our whispers seemed unusually loud in the still night. My heart pounded as Emily told a joke, but even her laugh sounded hollow in the silent woods. Outside our circle, the darkness pressed in like a blanket. Every crackle of the fire felt unnaturally loud. I realized the silence was oppressive. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone, was watching just beyond our circle of light. I sat alone by the fire, the warmth of the dying embers flickering in the quiet night. Emily had gone to sleep in the tent, leaving me with only the sound of the crackling fire and the distant hum of the forest. My eyes grew heavy, the rhythmic glow of the coals almost lulling me into sleep. Then I heard it. Soft, deliberate footsteps crunching on the dry leaves behind me. My heart leapt into my throat. I spun around, my breath catching, but saw nothing. Just the dark, empty trees standing like silent sentinels in the night. I told myself it was just my imagination, maybe a deer, a shadow playing tricks on me. As I settled back down, trying to shake off the unease, a strange scent filled the air, sharp, metallic, like iron. I coughed, waving my hand through the smoke, but the smell lingered, thick and unnerving. My skin prickled, a cold shiver creeping down my spine. I wondered if it was just the night, playing tricks on my senses. I focused back on the glowing coals, trying to calm my racing thoughts. But then, something caught my eye. For a moment I could have sworn I saw a shape, no, a face, forming in the curling smoke. I blinked, and it was gone. Just the dancing embers remained, flickering in the wind. But my pulse quickened. I should have felt relief, but instead, a creeping dread began to slither through me. Something wasn't right. Something was watching me. Fear surged through me, and before I knew it, my legs were moving. I bolted toward the tent, my heart hammering in my chest. The flap of the tent rustled in the breeze as I yanked it open, desperate to find Emily. But the inside was empty, she was gone. My breath caught in my throat. The only sign of her was the lantern lying outside by the entrance, its light flickering faintly on the ground. I crouched down, my mind racing, and turned to examine the area around the fire. Something stopped me cold. Strange footprints were imprinted in the dirt, glowing in the lantern's beam. They were massive, uneven, and irregular, like something with long, misshapen toes had pressed into the soil. My blood froze. I stood up, my hands shaking, and followed the prints into the forest. My lantern's light barely cut through the darkness as I stepped into the trees, the canopy above swallowing what little moonlight there was. I called Emily's name again, my voice trembling, but the forest swallowed it whole. The forest was alive with sounds, leaves rustling, twigs snapping underfoot, but nothing that made me feel less alone. Panic crawled up my spine as I pushed forward, my steps hurried and desperate. Then the humming started again. Low at first, almost inaudible, but it grew, sending vibrations through the ground and up into my bones. The trees around me trembled as if they were alive. I stopped dead in my tracks as my lantern flickered, sputtered, and then went out. Darkness engulfed me. The humming grew louder, wrapping itself around me, thick and oppressive. My legs refused to stop, as if some unseen force was pulling me forward, guiding me down the path of those footprints. I tried to stop myself, but it was as if I was no longer in control. The forest hummed in a way that felt like a song, one that I was powerless to escape. When dawn finally broke, I found myself standing on a narrow gravel road, far from the campsite. The forest behind me had fallen eerily silent. Without a word, without looking back, I turned and walked away, my legs stiff, my heart still racing. I didn't stop until I was far from that place. And when I finally drove away, I never looked back. Safe under the morning sun, I still felt a tremor in my limbs. The world seemed too normal now, the silence of night replaced by birdsong and the wind rustling through the leaves. But I was shaken. Whatever had happened in those woods, it couldn't be explained by anything ordinary. In the light of day, I tried to make sense of it all. There were no ghosts, no monsters, just something old, something strange deep in that forest. It was as though the earth itself had awakened. Something had listened to my fears and answered. I had stirred something, and now, I'd never be the same. Weeks have passed since that night. I haven't camped since, and I never will again. But still, at night, sometimes I hear a distant hum or the whisper of leaves. I wonder if, somewhere in the woods, it remembers me. Something in me is broken, and a new kind of quiet haunts my mind, the echo of that humming. At home, every time I'd brew coffee, the metallic smell of campfire would linger unexpectedly. My hands still tremble when I reach for the stove, as if expecting flames to dance at my fingertips. I wonder if I'll ever forget that night. Lately, I've been having nightmares. Sometimes I dream I'm back in that clearing, but everything's wrong. The trees take on human shapes, the wind carries my name, and the shadows reach out for me. I wake up gasping, drenched in sweat, the forest's whisper still echoing in my ears. Each morning, I'm relieved it's only a dream, but I can't shake the feeling that it might not be. People have asked me if I'm okay, if something happened. I laugh it off, say it was just a bad dream. But each time I think of that night, a bitterness creeps in. There are things I can't explain. And now, I'm starting to wonder if those things are explaining me. I suppose I'm lucky to be alive, maybe lucky to remember. Sometimes I catch myself wondering if it was all my fault, if somehow I led her into something terrible. Why was I left alive when I called her name, and she never answered? Guilt gnaws at me on still nights, and I imagine the forest, breathing just behind me, curious, as if watching to see what I'll do next. I'm forever changed. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this bone-chilling tale, please consider subscribing to Nightmare and Fear. It's free, and it helps us reach our goal of 500 subscribers. Remember, not every campsite is meant for the living. Have you ever camped in a place so quiet, so still, that it felt like the forest itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen? Welcome to Nightmare and Fear, where we dive into the unknown and explore the darkness that waits just beyond the light of our campfires. If you enjoyed these stories, don't forget to subscribe. It's free and helps us reach our goal of 500 subscribers for more chilling tales. The hike had been long, and I was exhausted. As the sun began to sink behind the ridge, I spotted it, a small clearing nestled in the heart of the woods. I had been looking for a quiet, secluded spot to camp, but something about this place felt different. There were no sounds of birds or the usual hum of insects. Even the wind seemed to hesitate before moving through the trees. I set up camp quickly, trying to ignore the unsettling quiet that surrounded me. My tent was nestled against the base of a towering pine, its thick branches casting shadows that danced across the ground. It should have been peaceful, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. By the time I had everything set up and a small fire crackling, the light had dimmed completely. The stars were hidden behind a blanket of thick clouds, and the moon, if it was even there, was barely visible. The woods around me felt heavy, as if they were holding their breath. I couldn't help but notice the trees. The way they stood so straight, so rigid. Not a single branch swayed. Not a single leaf stirred. Have you ever been somewhere that felt too quiet? As I sat by the fire, eating a quick dinner, the weight of the silence pressed in on me. The crackling flames and the occasional snap of a twig under the fire's heat were the only sounds. No animals, no wind, no distant hum of life. Just the flames, the darkness, and me. I tried to brush off the growing unease, convincing myself it was just a fluke, just my mind playing tricks after a long hike. But then I heard it. A soft rustling sound coming from the edge of the clearing. Not the usual forest sounds of small animals, but something heavier. I stood up slowly, my heart pounding, straining to see through the darkness. The firelight barely reached the trees on the edge of the clearing, but I thought I saw something move. At first, it was so quick, I could have sworn I imagined it. But then I heard it again. Something, or someone, moving just out of reach of the firelight. I called out, my voice shaking. "Hello? Is someone there?" Silence. I waited, my eyes scanning the darkness. The only sound now was my breath and the crackle of the fire. I didn't wait long. Grabbing my flashlight, I darted into the darkness toward where I thought I had seen movement. But when I got there was nothing. No sign of anything, no footprints, no disturbed leaves. Just the faint, eerie scent of pine and cold earth. I returned to my fire, my mind racing. Maybe I was just tired. Maybe I had imagined it. But somehow, that didn't feel like the truth. The hours dragged on, the fire slowly dwindling into soft embers. The air around me grew colder, the stillness even deeper. Every so often, I would hear the same rustling sound, faint, but unmistakable. I couldn't tell where it was coming from. I tried to ignore it, lying down in my tent, trying to fall asleep. But every time I closed my eyes, I felt as if something was out there, waiting for me. Watching me. Then it happened. The scraping. A sharp, rough sound, like claws against bark. It came from just outside the tent, so close I could feel the vibrations through the fabric. My blood froze. My hand shot to the flashlight beside me, but I couldn't move. What was it? My mind screamed at me to get out, to run, but my body wouldn't obey. Suddenly, the tent shifted. Someone, was pushing against the side of it, just enough to make the fabric creak. My pulse was thundering in my ears. I pressed my back against the other side of the tent, holding my breath. And then, nothing. The sound stopped. The pressure against the tent disappeared. I lay there in the dark, still and silent. The only sound was my own racing heart. What could I do? My thoughts tangled, but all I could think was to wait for morning, to survive the night. When the first light of dawn crept through the trees, I scrambled out of the tent, too fast, my legs stiff from fear and exhaustion. The clearing seemed just as it had the night before, silent, untouched. I stood there, breathing hard, looking around. The air was colder now, and the forest still seemed unnervingly quiet. The trees, they seemed to close in around me. They weren't just trees, they felt like sentinels, ancient and watching. The marks on the tree, the ones I thought I had imagined, were still there. Deep gashes, as if something had torn at the bark with immense strength. I staggered back, my mind racing. These marks weren't here before. I would have noticed them. What had done this? The forest, was it trying to keep me there? I quickly packed up, but as I did, I felt it again. That sensation, that someone was just beyond the trees, waiting, watching. I left the camp in a hurry, not looking back, my feet never stopping until I was far from that place. My breath was ragged, and my mind screamed that I had to leave it behind. I've never been back to that camp, and I never will. Something about that place, those trees, feels wrong. And every time I think of it, the sensation of eyes watching me follows me. It's as if that place still calls to me, urging me to return. But I know better. I wonder if anyone else has stumbled upon it, that place forgotten by maps. A place that isn't meant to be found. If you've enjoyed this tale of the unknown, be sure to subscribe to Nightmare and Fear. It's free, and it helps us get closer to 500 subscribers for more stories like this one. And remember, the next time you camp in the woods, make sure the trees are really just trees. Have you ever pitched your tent in a clearing so remote it doesn't exist on any map? Have you ever felt the hush of the pines press in around you, as if the forest itself was watching? Have you ever heard your own voice answer you, only to realize you weren't the one who spoke? If you love the thrill of the unknown, welcome to Nightmare and Fear. We're so close to 500 subscribers, and it's completely free to join our dark family. Hit that subscribe button now, because tonight you'll hear what happened to me at Hollow Creek Camp. I drove down a narrow dirt road until my headlights cut through the trees and revealed a small gravel clearing. No signs, no ranger station, just a faded spray paint arrow reading, Hollow Creek. My pack weighed heavy on my shoulders, and every step I took pressed into moss so lush it swallowed my footprints. The creek's gentle roar guided me to the perfect spot. As I pitched my tent beneath towering pines, the air tasted of damp earth and resin. By the time I had logs stacked for a fire, twilight had swallowed the sky. I coaxed the fire to life, the logs hissing as flames licked upward. The crackle was the only sound, until I heard something else, a faint tap, tap, like a fingernail against wood. I swung my flashlight to the tree-ling. Nothing moved. Behind me, the tent mesh trembled. My breath hitched. I unzipped the flap and found it empty. No footprints, no disturbance, just the oppressive darkness beyond my campfire's glow. Morning light felt like a reprieve, but the creek held a secret. While pouring coffee, I stared into the water and froze. My reflection stared back, but behind my face, a second face, pale and hollow-eyed, vanished the moment I blinked. My heart thundered. I spun around. Nothing. No one. Yet that reflection had been real. That evening, I sat by the fire again, the flames bending strangely toward the forest. A cold wind picked up, though the leaves hung still. I heard my name whispered. Alex. The voice was soft, urgent. I called back. "Who's there?" Only the fire crackling answered, and the night held its breath. At 2:13 a.m., sleep fled me when I heard scratching beneath my tent. I flung open the flap. On the moss lay a perfect spiral of bone-white stones, each etched with symbols I couldn't recognize. A low hum thrummed in my ears. Suddenly, something vaulted across the clearing, a tall silhouette with impossibly long limbs. I gave chase into the trees, stumbling over roots. Branches whipped my face as I ran, but the creature never made a sound. I burst back into camp, only to find the spiral stones gone, replaced by muddy footprints leading deeper into darkness. When dawn bled through the pines, I was shaking. The forest seemed innocent again, birdsong, sunlit leaves. I tore down my camp, heart pounding as I spotted my own footprint pressed into soft earth, elongated and distorted, as though forged by something non-human. I didn't look back as I sped away. Yet even now, in daylight, I feel a tremor in my bones, a resonance of that midnight hum. I haven't camped since. Mirrors catch movement behind me. Shadows seem to lean closer. My dreams replay that spiral of stones, that silent chase, the second face in the water. Thank you for listening. If this tale sent shivers down your spine, please subscribe to Nightmare and Fear. It's free and helps us reach our goal of 500 subscribers. Remember, not every campsite is meant for the living. Have you ever listened to the forest breathe in the dead of night? Have you ever felt your own memories slip from your mind, only to hear them whispered back to you by unseen lips? Have you ever watched in horror as the trees around your camp rearrange themselves into shapes you recognized, but shouldn't exist? If you crave tales that shatter reality and leave you questioning your own mind, welcome to Nightmare and Fear. We're on the brink of 500 subscribers, and it's completely free to join our dark family. Hit that subscribe button now, and let's step into the unknown together. I arrived at Emberleaf Camp just as the sun sank behind the ridgeline. You won't find this place on any map, just a narrow dirt spur leading to a grove of 10,000-year-old white pines. Their bark oozed a milky resin that glistened in the dying light, like giant tear-streaked faces watching me. My pack dropped heavy on the forest floor, the needles cushioning my footsteps. I staked my tent in a small clearing ring by those resinous trunks. The air smelled of fresh rain and spoiled sugar, sweet, but wrong. I wiped a drop of the white sap from my hand. It felt sticky and cold, like grasping a bit of the forest's own blood. As dusk fell, I built a campfire and arranged smooth stones around it. The resin on the trees began to glow faintly under the firelight, pulsing like a heartbeat. I snapped a photo on my phone, and in the image, a pale shape stood behind me, my own reflection, but twisted, eyes hollow, shoulders hunched. I spun around. No one was there. That night, I lay in my sleeping bag listening to the creek's lullaby, but beneath the rush of water, I heard something else, a soft scraping, like fingernails dragging across bark. I unzipped the tent and shone my flashlight. The beams hid dozens of tiny resin sculptures clinging to the trees. Each was molded into a perfect likeness of me, my boots, my pack, even my watch. They weren't there when I arrived. The sculptures frightened me more than any shadow. I crept close. One sculpture wore my hiking jacket, its resin face frozen in a silent scream. As I touched it, a voice rasped in my ear, my own voice, reciting the day's events, the route I took, the water I drank, my deepest childhood shame. I staggered back. The forest fell unnaturally silent, as if catching its breath. The resin on the trunks began to drip again, forming new sculptures at an alarming rate. I retreated into my tent, heart hammering. The scraping and whispering continued through the walls, growing louder, more intimate. Around midnight, I couldn't take any more. I burst out of the tent into a world transformed. The trees themselves had shifted, branches arched like bony arms, roots uprooted to form twisting figures. The ground beneath my feet felt unstable, the earth pulsing with each breath of the forest. I stumbled toward my dying fire. In its glow, I saw entire scenes carved from resin. The night I lost my brother's toy in the river, the time I betrayed my best friend's secret. The sculptures replayed those moments in silent tableau, frozen in resin but charged with palpable guilt. Then the sculptures began to move, slowly, methodically, circling me in a macabre dance. The whispers crescendoed into a guttural chorus. My own memories twisted into accusations. Panic surged through me. I yanked my flashlight and sprinted down the creek bed, branches grabbing at my shirt, tripping me. Behind me, the resin figures pursued, limbless torsos sliding across the ground, their hollow eyes burning with memory-driven hunger. The creek's water lapped at my feet, cold, yet curiously buoyant. I plunged in, hoping the current would carry me away. But the water glowed white, the resin seeping into the stream. It coated my boots, my pants, sealing me to the earth. I clawed at the bank, tearing free just enough to collapse onto dry land. Above me, the trees leaned in, branches dripping resin that hissed as it hit the embers of my abandoned fire. The sculptures surrounded me once more, whispering every regret I'd ever buried. I closed my eyes and screamed, an awful, wounded sound that cut through the night. When first light pierced the canopy, I woke in the gravel parking area, my truck idling, engine warm. I scrambled inside, trembling, and drove without looking back. Behind me, the forest lay still, ordinary. The pines were just trees again, their bark pale and dry. But something remains. On the dashboard, a single drop of white resin. And at home, I swear I can feel its pulse against my skin. I haven't told anyone the full truth, but sometimes at night I wake to the faintest scraping at my bedroom walls. I'll catch my reflection in the mirror, and for a heartbeat, it's not me, it's that hollow-eyed twin carved from forest memory. Thank you for listening. If you felt the forest's breath on your neck, please subscribe to Nightmare and Fear. It's free, and it helps us reach 500 subscribers so we can share more nightmares like this. Remember, some campsites aren't just forgotten by maps, they're forgotten by time itself.